Okay, good midday on the west coast of Canada here, where Blake and I find ourselves for another episode of the Political Nooner. And today's episode, want to draw attention again, as we like to do on this program, to Promethian action, Promethian updates on their YouTube channel. And I got a link for them here. Their analysis of what's going on in the world, what's going on with the Trump administration is second to none. I think it's the best in the business. It's one of the fastest growing. I joined them. They were 150,000 subscribers. They had a lot, but they are now up to, the last time I looked, like 400,000. So within a month, they've gained like 300,000 people on their channel. So you and I, like, we're struggling here. We got maybe 50 people will end up watching this, but we're all in it for the same cause, and so I'm really happy to promote this channel. These two ladies, it's Barbara and Susan, and they've been at this for a long time. As a matter of fact, their channel, their account here on YouTube was doing really nothing for a very, very long time. They've got videos on the platform as long as the platform's been around. So they're longtime warriors at the game, and but they are doing spectacular work. And so to start the show off, I wanted to play a clip from their latest episode. This just came out yesterday. Really sheds light and context on what's happening in Minnesota. And it was just absolutely, it's inspired stuff. If anything could be in a secular political context, be anointed, be inspired, this stuff is, because you can tell it's the truth. You can tell it's the truth about things. So without further ado, the title of the episode is "They Brought the War Home," and there's some really telling stuff here. I'll play it as long as we don't, because I want to get it up to Poilievre speaking. I think she butchers his name worse than I just did there, but Susan Kokinda does the quarterbacking on this one. Anyway, here we go. Hopefully they don't have a commercial break and we can play it for a little bit. Here we go.
What do a shooting in Minneapolis, the Davos smackdown, and a 170-year-old British playbook have in common? They're all part of the same war, and the empire just lost its first line of defense. President Trump's new national defense strategy just ended 80 years of American support for regime change operations abroad. No more color revolutions in other countries, no more democracy promotion. The post-war order isn't dying, it's dead. So what do the British do when they can't run their operations overseas anymore? They bring them home. Now they tell you Minneapolis is about communities fighting back against authoritarian ICE agents. But what you're really seeing is a textbook color revolution, the same tactics Lord Palmerston pioneered 170 years ago to stop the American system from spreading. And the same personnel who ran regime change in Ukraine and Syria are now running operations in the Midwest. I'm Susan Kokinda. I've studied how the British pioneered these methods going back to the 1840s. And understanding that history is going to help you see today's battle for what it really is and what it's going to take to win. So if this is your kind of fight, hit those like, share, and subscribe buttons to stay in touch and help us grow. Today, we're going to cover three things. First, Minneapolis as a classic British destabilization operation and the USAID operative caught running it. Second, why the British are suddenly obsessed with Lord Palmerston, the original Color Revolution author. And third, the new national defense strategy as the final nail that forced them to bring the war home. While the media gaslights you about out-of-control ICE agents, Vice President J.D. Vance put his finger squarely on the truth. He said, "This level of engineered chaos is unique to Minneapolis. It is the direct consequence of far-left agitators working with local authorities." Engineered chaos, working with local authorities. Let that sink in. And here's one of those local authorities. Rachel Sayre, the EMS chief in Minneapolis, posted this attack on federal law enforcement.
My background is in international humanitarian response in conflict zones. In Yemen, Haiti, Syria, Iraq, and Ukraine.
The more you stay home, the less you want to leave.
All right.
And the more
So we got our commercial at that point. So that's a very powerful point. I'm glad they got that. At least we were able to reach that point, Blake. And the really interesting thing about this woman, this Sayer woman, is she has experience in Yemen, Syria, Iraq, and Ukraine. So she is a color revolutionary expert. And in today's show, in our show, there is a direct link to the Promethean Action Program. Please watch that in its entirety. Anybody watching our little effort here, definitely watch Promethean Report and watch every episode. The analysis is spectacular. One of the most telling things that came out in that last episode they did is when they started talking about Lord Palmerston. Palmerston was the future. He ultimately becomes Prime Minister of England. But he initiated a lot of foreign policy for Britain during the 19th century. And what he determined was if we can foster dissent and trouble, regime change in foreign lands, we can create things, entities, political entities that are friendly to our oversight. And America complied in all this after World War II. As history progresses, World War II comes, the world order is reestablished, and this liberalism came in, and now Trump is destroying that. And as Promethean points out, they talk about publications, high visible publications, highly influential publications, talking about Trump knocking us back to a 19th century state of being of political strong arming through China, as it's turning out, China, Russia, and the United States, and no longer the liberal, smaller entities like European nations, this sort of thing. Absolutely fascinating. But to hear, and then they do politicians quoting, and they use conservatives. It's quite interesting, conservative voices. One in England, they chose, I forget the guy's name offhand. Again, watch Promethean for it. But Pierre Poilievre, very interesting that he comes out and he's quoting Palmerston, the exact quote that the British politician said about it. And basically, Poilievre is raising the alarm bells the same way as any liberal might at what Trump is doing. It's America going back to America first, looking at the Monroe Doctrine, focusing on the Western Hemisphere. And in February, there's going to be a military meeting of something like 34 nations coming into America, Western Hemisphere nations, not Eastern, not Europe. These are Western, to combat drug trafficking, which has been used to destabilize America. And so as you watch Promethean and understand what's going on, the whole role of government hand in hand with their foot soldiers, Antifa, and Black Lives Matter, these color revolutionaries is what they are being exposed, uncovered, and revealed for what they are. So you saw that episode as well, Blake. What was your takeaway from it? What did you find interesting? What is your takeaway from that?
Well, number one, Lord Palmerston was ahead when he became prime minister. But let's look at the British Empire during that era. They were the United States of the world at that time. So
yeah, they were top.
Put that right up. They were top dog. They had full control of the seas. They controlled, I think, almost 2/3 of the planet from a little island off the coast of Europe. And they had the largest navy. They because we didn't have air support back then. Of course, airplanes didn't exist, but Navy was the controlling mechanism.
Real Britannia.
They had the control. So we have to look at it from that lens at that time, because it was a different era. America wasn't a superpower yet. It was growing. It was a middle power trying to grow. Where Canada was trying to do the same thing. We had all kinds of, they finally put it together in 1867. We did the same thing, but we couldn't get it. We couldn't build the population, mainly because we're a northern country and it's bloody cold and difficult to settle.
Yeah.
But the Americans were growing, the Manifest Destiny, the Monroe Doctrine, all of that. They eventually got to that point because in the 20th century, because of the European World War I and II, basically depleted the United Kingdom. And then we had a whole new type of warfare, right? We had air war. Like, you're now you have airplanes. That was a whole new thing once you had control of that. And of course, the United States had a great moat around it to protect it, being the Atlantic and the Pacific and the Arctic oceans. And I think it's a different perspective to look at that, but not in the sense that philosophy stayed rooted within the intelligence networks of the United Kingdom, because the United Kingdom still, as an island, has to draw resources to it, right? It doesn't have a lot of its own resources. So it has to bring resources to it. So it has to manipulate countries like it has for a few centuries by doing exactly that kind of thing to make sure you have friendly regimes in these areas you're drawing resources from. So that is, when you're a dependent country with power, you can do that. The United States, the difference, I think, is that the United States started doing that in concert with them. And you can guarantee the CIA, we've watched the actions of the CIA in the last 70 years, when they were, what were they called in the 50s and 60s before they changed their name?
The SAS.
Was it the SAS? No, they had another name.
All right, somebody remind us what the old CIA name was.
Yeah, I remember them from, they talked about them in remember from Mission Impossible and the old shows. They had a different name.
They aren't Thrush. Thrush.
Anyways, I'm just having a brain cramp there. But essentially, they were doing the same thing. I mean, it was the same policy. And when you look at the history of manipulating countries, this isn't a new thing. The Romans did it. When you're a superpower, you have to do that. That's to maintain your power. You got to make sure that there isn't a growing threat somewhere. And it may mean you have to meddle in another country's affairs. Not saying it's good or bad. It's just a fact. And you would rather change things at the leadership level and the controlling mechanisms versus a military conquest, because that's much more expensive and costly. So that's what the Chinese are doing right now. They're not going to war with guns. They're going to war with the economy. They're doing exactly the same thing that the English were doing. So I think, though, that when you look at who's behind the more modern context of what you see today, I think of George Soros, right? How the heck did he manipulate the monetary markets just about bankrupting by shorting the United Kingdom's entire currency system, where literally Thatcher had to put the brakes on trading currency and said, nope, we're halting it right there. So I just want to finish it. So somehow Soros got left alone. He hasn't been taken out. And talk about color revolutions. He has become the behind the scenes color revolutionary that has funded these destabilizations all over the world, including getting his people into power positions in states, right down to the attorney generals, to, you name it. He puts all these people in there. He's been known to be connected to the UK, its intelligence networks. So
we got an answer for you. It's the Office of Strategic Services.
OSS. That's right.
Want to thank Chuck for bringing that to our attention here, folks. Welcome everybody. My issue is we've got the Restream chat is down. I'm not able to see in Restream at all. So I'm kind of hopping back and forth between Restream and YouTube as I watch it just like anybody else on YouTube. So able to see you all there. Welcome everybody. We got a lot of good stuff to go into. So, Blake, we just saw a big change in Minnesota, the change in policy. The police who were standing back and not even standing back, but last I heard, they were delivering sandwiches and the like to the protesters. Tim Walz, the governor, and I think Frey, the mayor, have both been in contact with the White House or Trump's people at any rate. Anyway, Tim Walz did talk directly to President Trump. Trump says we're on the same wavelength. Trump is the master. He's the master. What happened to make Tim Walz contact Trump. What is going on, and why did the police change tactics? Why are because now there's pictures of them throwing the protesters to the ground, and so it's great to see justice and law and order is being initiated. A lot of movement going on
Yeah.
behind the scenes. But what's Promethean report, Promethean action, their analysis is this a color guard? This is from the government. It's top down with their agency, with the paramilitary. I wasn't aware that Antifa got its start in 1989. I believe it was the year 1989 in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? And Black Lives Matter got its start where? Minneapolis. So this is ground zero for a lot of leftist resistance to Trump, just like going into Venezuela. Trump seems to be going where the action is and putting the pressure right where it needs to be applied,
Yeah.
like a zit with all the pus coming out. I hate to say it, but I mean, it's so graphic. But that's what we're seeing here. The pressure points on, and all the excuse me, all the kind of the rot is coming to the surface in Minneapolis. What caused Tim Walz's change of heart to reach out to Trump?
I think you could call it the Maduro effect. I think he just put a shot across the world that if you are running a criminal political organization, you are in the crosshairs of the administration, because basically they're done with these guys running criminal organizations, not just outside that are affecting America, but inside, all foreign and domestic.
Yeah.
I bet you Trump's team had that discussion with them, that we've got all this evidence. You're not going to get away with it. You're going to face trial. We know you're a mid-level guy. You're just a dummy running the show there. You were put in by the Democratic machine and those operatives that are working for the deep state. And I think, again, like Maduro, Tim Walz could be another guy who's willing to sing for his freedom, right?
We know he's in trouble because of the Somalian corruption that's been uncovered there, and there's a lot of it.
And there's a murder that's potentially looming once we find out more details about the representative that was murdered.
Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, we tend to forget about her, which is
Yeah.
unfortunate, but we shouldn't. But yeah, they had
voted against his bill.
Yeah, she was a Democrat, which is interesting. And I think the
Yeah.
only Democrat to vote against or work against it. And then the controversy came up with the with the guy in the mask, what is the guy's Michael Myers,
Yeah.
and he's at the door, and then she was murdered, and then of course there was the whole thing about Klobuchar, a hit on, I forget her name, is it Amy Klobuchar? And the
Yeah.
idea was to take her out because she was wanting to be governor or a Senate seat, something like that. It's just
Yeah.
crazy. It's hard to keep track of it.
Well,
all.
especially when the history seems to be all these people get Seth Riched, right? If they do something against the machine, you kind of accidents and things happen to you, and muggings in the street with no wallet stolen. It's just I'm laughing facetiously here on this, but it's a horrible scenario. But yeah, I think Tim Walz got I think he's picked up how serious Donald Trump is on this. I don't think he's going to mess around. I think Trump's allowing it to get to where it did, just so it shows how out of control this group of criminals are. And they are criminals. And I think people are getting frustrated. They want to see some people arrested.
Oh, yeah.
But we also need more people, because how you broke up the mafia is you had to get the capos to sing and turn on the Godfathers. We want to know who are the Godfathers running this whole show. And if it goes all the way to the elites within England, and if it goes into the upper echelons of the Democratic Party, the central bankers, all of them, let's get the names, let's get them all out there, who's all orchestrating the puppets. those are the guys we want to go after.
Do you think, here's the thing, we haven't talked about this yet, but apparently they were using a thing called Signals. Remember, what was it? Pete Hesketh got in trouble. He was using Signals and it got hacked and it was leaked and information came out on an attack plan they were doing. It became very controversial in a negative sense for Hesketh, Signals. So Signals is being used by their side as well. And it's been infiltrated. I believe the guy's something like Cam Higby. So what he discovered was that they were using this online. It's like a Discord kind of chat platform that you can use called Signals, and it had high-profile people on it: educators, nurses, politicians. Apparently, it's rumored that the Secretary General, I think that's her title, of Minnesota State is in there. So it goes all the way to the office of allegedly of Tim Walz. If that got hacked, which it did, and they're freaking out, and basically what Signals was being used for, it was like a paramilitary communication network in order to establish roles and strategies in order to track, hinder, limit the effectiveness of ICE, harass them at every turn, kind of annoyance strategies. But this got hacked. Do you think that may have had a role in, if Tim Walz's people were involved, in him reaching out to Trump to try and mitigate against further damages coming his way? Possible, probable, maybe, who the hell knows?
There isn't a single communication that isn't hacked. Let's put it that way. The NSA has complete access. We know that from a lot of data dumps that came, from Snowden.
Yeah.
He blew the whistle. He's hiding out in Russia right now, and I know some people are mixed reviews on his loyalty as a traitor, but he basically blew the lid off of what the NSA is doing. They have access to anything. They can go into any system. They've got the best hackers in the world. They have backdoor access into all of this information. We saw through the 2020, election, the stolen election, that how all these big tech companies are all supposedly all working in concert because they were told, you need to provide us the information. We need to know who's communicating. They have full access. So I don't know, unless they're all using burner phones, but even burner phones aren't even that great of communication. They still get hacked. You got to go over a cell network and you're going to get recorded. They've had that kind of equipment around for a long time. Project Echelon, I think they called it. Project Echelon is basically listens to all telephone conversations and records them in these massive data banks that the government has. Did Tim Walz stoop? He seems like, to me, a real dumb guy. He kind of reminds me of the Minnesota version of Doug Ford. Just a buffoon, yappy guy that just goes on and on and on. And you know what? Guys like that are the ones that are stupid and say stuff and don't realize that the tech that they're on is being monitored, and that stuff's going to get out. So is it possible that Trump has a whole bunch of stuff that came out? Most likely. Here's your excerpts of all your conversations, Timmy. You're going to go down hard if you don't stop this.
It's interesting because the comment had been made, why did Kamala Harris end up having Tim Walz as her vice president selection? The guy wasn't popular. She wasn't popular either. In fact, it looks like her whole campaign
is Dumb and Dumber.
Well, it's like they were selected by the power over them. Like, we're going to
100%.
We're removing Biden. We're going to move you kids in. And the reason Walz maybe got the nod is because maybe he had a little cash on hand to funnel into the Harris-Walz campaign efforts. Because of the money that they had obtained through, illegitimate purposes at the Leering Center. So, so all that kind of corruption. So there was a lot of money. There was a lot of money, and it makes sense that maybe Waltz was chosen because he could funnel some of that financial clout into Kamala's campaign to help out the effort. Not totally science fiction. Plus, not everybody that watches us is on the X platform. We got some film footage just to give you an idea, a picture image of what these comms are like, how they function. This is sped up, but it gives you a sense of what they are. Again, this is for people that aren't on that particular platform. So here you go, 0 Hour. This is an amazing account. I'll make everything a little bit bigger here. They can't help themselves. When the feds do mass arrests on these people, it's going to be a funny watch. All of this is illegal searches. Cam Higby, again, the guy who kind of hacked into their comms. In case you were wondering, yeah, they're still actively checking license plate numbers, hunting federal agents. So it goes like this, and here it is, and they're listing the license plate numbers of the ICE officials and this sort of thing on there, yeah, in the chat. And so this is being monitored, and now this information is being turned over to the FBI. But it just gives you an idea. So they're communicating, but their comms have been effectively hacked, and they had to close down one, and then they open up another, and then they find them there as well. So it's not going well, and I think because of that, I think the pressure is on for Waltz, and I think that may have had played a role in motivating him to go and contact the president. And now, 24 hours after he talks to Trump, we're seeing an about face from the police department. This is great for optics. So you don't have Trump's hooded ghouls, hooded Gestapo, for the language of the left. Now it's rank and file of the police that's taking things on. So yeah, I think we're seeing a real positive. We're seeing a real turnaround. We're seeing the good guys get control of Minnesota, and also, of course, we got Holman in there, and this guy. These are all military people. They know how to control crowds, urban warfare, all the rest of it. Did you see the girl running? I mean, it really is like a military thing. You see the girl picked up a flash bomb, and then she blew up in her hand, and so she's running, going, medic. It's like a freaking war zone, literally over there. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, left and right, if you see a flash bomb,
don't
bang,
pick it up.
Don't leave it be.
There was a guy.
Yeah,
I saw a guy that when LA was. Remember all the last fall in LA, they were rioting and causing trouble there. One of them, there was a video of a guy exactly picked up and lit up in his hand to throw it, and it blew all his fingers off. Oh,
yeah, don't do that. Look out, children.
But you're kind of like, you know what? You deserved it because you're stupid. It's like, don't like it. It was horrible to watch, but you're walking around with no digits left. That's brilliant.
So Chuck goes, Signal. This is the thing they've been using, like Discord. It's an encrypted messaging system. It's supposed to be secure, at least more secure than regular messaging systems, but we're finding it's not, as Blake was underscoring. And Leon, we love Mr. Finstag, Leon. Hey, how did Tim Walz get $35 million in one day after he's selected? Well, there you go, right? And again, from Mr. Finstag, I don't agree with Nick Fuentes on this, many things, but this was spot on. Yeah, Fuentes he's opposition. Watch out for Fuentes. He's controlled opposition. I don't trust that guy as far as I could throw him. But every now and then, because he plays that role, he's going to echo some of our talking points, because it behooves him to do so. Because ultimately becomes, if you're not for us, you're against us. Okay, this is kind of an encouraging comment. It's one of the things I predicted for 2026. We've got to get control of the appellate courts, of these rogue judges. We need to get control of them, or we need to bypass them entirely by going to, these juries, right? That these impaneled juries that the U.S. uses in order to get things done. But 0 Hour, Democrats are running low on activist judges, and appeal courts are getting sick of their shit. And we can only hope, Blake, that is true. But what do you think about this? These grand juries, that's the term, grand juries being impaneled to take care of business and to look at things. And that by doing that, it does bypass these rogue judges because it just is kind of is a workaround because somehow we've got to neutralize these rogue judges so that they don't play that hindering role, which they've been very effective at in slowing down justice from happening. Everything's working against the way it was intended. Any loophole, any mechanism in the system, in the US system that can be used to hinder justice seems to be being applied at every turn. So how do we get control of these judges, Blake? Have you thought, or have you heard anybody talking? This is the way we're going to do it. The only answer I've heard,
they got to get rid of the filibuster. Number one,
tell us
start
about
there.
that. Tell us about
that's a problem when you've got rhinos and Democrats working to block these appointments to get new judges activated and in the system that are constitutionalists. And the problem is we've talked about this before. We've had multi-decades of entrenched deep state work to put in the judges to manage what the deep state wants. And I think that's the swamp. That's just drain the swamp that we wanted all the discussion. We'd love to see it here in Canada too. We need a major draining the swamp here. But the whole point is that they've had decades to root these people in there deep. But as the Trump administration, who has been elected by the people to appoint judges, is getting blocked by the filibuster in the Senate, right? And that's simply because there is enough Republicans to pass it, but because they have let's just say an agreement within the Senate that they need 60 out of the 100 to pass these appointments, that all it takes is one Republican to get it to 59 or enough Republicans to join in with the Democrats to block those appointments. And that's what's happening. And yet constitutionally, there's no requirement for 60. It's just more of an agreement, just so it's kind of like, oh yeah, we've got a super majority, so we're all on the same page and negotiate it. But we know, and on those of us that are on this side of the aisle know that essentially, as soon as the Democrats have power in both houses, they are going to end it. It's going to be finished. There will be, they'll have 50% plus one to get what they want. Bang, 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 one after another. And that's how they'll repopulate everything and put it all in. So it starts there, but it's also at the state level. So you've got local governments at the state level that go through the same thing. And we talked about at the beginning of the show about this whole color revolution and this clandestine type of operators that are doing this, the George Soros types that are investing in getting these people into power. And they've been doing it for decades. And it's trench warfare, folks. It's not an overnight success. And I know people are like, Bondi, we want to see arrests, but these people, like the level of corruption is so deep.
Well, we saw that already with the women that were arrested and they were let out within 24 hours.
Yeah. Well, and how do you do that? This is this is trench warfare. It's just, they're dug in. You're not going to be able to move them in a one fell swoop in 1 year. It's not going to happen. So if you're going to work within the political apparatus, it's going to take multiple terms. That means you got to win the midterms. You got to win the states. MAGA's got to fight at the state level and get governors and take over your legislatures and win there too. So you can get rid of the state misery that's going on.
Well, we got to get rid of our own,
in Colorado.
We got to get rid of our own people though. And by our own people, I mean Republicans that are not MAGA, but Republicans like Rand Paul is trouble, and Thomas Massey. Those guys got to be primaried out. They got to get rid of them. You need people all in behind the president, because when you watch, again, going back to Promethian report, when those ladies lay it out, you go, this is what's happening. Every American should be shouldering in behind the president with what he's attempting to do with Monroe Doctrine.
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head where you were talking about Tim Walz and the money, right? Tim Walz, did anyone even know who he was until he ran as vice president? I mean, he was a nobody. I mean, he was known in Minnesota, but outside of Minnesota, was he considered a top tier potential contender? I hadn't even heard of that guy, hardly at all. All of a sudden, poof, he appears. You're on the ticket, but we talk about the money train. You know, where did he get that money? Like all of a sudden, he got 35 billion bucks. This is the rot that is so deep. When you see Ilhan Omar on her latest report with $30 million, this isn't just a Democratic issue. This is the corruption within as you called it earlier, the uniparty, the two wings of the same bird, of the deep state, because these guys all have bank accounts. They have offshore bank accounts. You're never going to see them. We know that. We talked at the beginning about Promethian Action, talks about the Palmerston, how they operate the intelligence networks through destabilization by regime change through color revolutions, but they're also doing this by funding, like we see in Ukraine, the corruption of the money. It's all about money, and it's getting these people because they're taking money to take a side. But how do you go into the Grand Cayman Islands? How do you go into Bermuda? How do you go into Switzerland to see their bank accounts there? You can't see them. You won't be able to see them. That's where the corruption is, not what they report on their IRS statements and their disclosures. That is not what you see. What you don't see is where the money is. And that's where the cartel money goes and all of the stuff that, again, when the Maduro type people who start singing, and if Tim Walz could start singing, and when they think they see real jail time, that's how you break the deep state. You get them all exposed by breaking them down. But is this going to change? No, it's trench warfare. And this is where MAGA as a movement is bigger than Trump, because Trump's only going to be here for one term. I know he's talking about another term.
Yeah, that's funny.
But you know, there is precedence for a president to stick around for an extra term. We think of FDR during World War II.
Yeah, I mean, if the 2020 comes out, if we get all the data on 2020, that things could get really interesting there. I want to say,
but we need.
I got a link here that just underscores a bit more what you're saying here, Blake. So just this thing, Salty Goat goes, they know this is a rattling pressure cooker. And when the top comes off it, we're talking again in Minnesota, it's going to be a disaster for the Democrats. They must be hiding something very big in Minnesota to send their foot soldiers there from all over the country. So it became Grand Central for the Democrats. So again, that speaks to what you're talking about, Blake, with the corruption of Tim Walz and the financial. That's all under there. And of course, Ilhan Omar is all part of that, Congresswoman. Omar, apparently she had like $45 in her bank account 5 years ago, something like this. And now she's worth 44 million. Like, you know, that's some business savvy you got there, you know.
Dead broke, and gets elected and becomes a multimillionaire with a representative salary.
I love this country. You know, remember the old Yakov Smirnoff, you know, I love what a country, you know, for 40.
Just open up.
Yeah.
So she's all daycare and wineries that don't exist. Yeah.
So what's great is she's under investigation. And that's, you know, that's encouraging because, you know, our people on our side, this should be a slam dunk. She's guilty of sin. You were talking about the wine story, the winery.
I put it in our private chat there if you wanted to show it. But yeah, it's Betty Johnson's done a nice expose on it, pointing out the wine at it's hysterical, but it's sad at the same time. It just shows how they funnel the money, right? Through fake entities, fake companies, and they could be companies within companies within companies within companies, right? Like they're all can be connected in, they own shares, this, and this, and it's 4 or 5 layers deep. And all
right, so here's Benny. How did Ilhan Omar make millions from 100% fake winery? So this is just one of her scams, right? I mean, we got the daycare things going on, but here we go, a fake winery. It's insane. We investigated, check it out. Jan Omar lists a California winery on her financial disclosures. You can see them below. The winery name is ESTCRU LLC, S Crew, St. Crew. In 23, it was valued at
I think it's E Street Crew. It's supposed to
E
be.
Street Cruise. Okay, there you go. Try and get that out of that.
Yeah.
In 23, it was valued at 15,000. In 24, it's valued at 5 million. Wow, that must be some winery. This would be a very successful winery, grow that much in value over 1 year. In 1 year, it went that way. Except the winery doesn't even exist, huh? No phone line, no physical winery, social media gone dark, a barely functional website, no wine. The winery, there's no wine at the winery. What is this? It gets worse. Omar's third husband, Tim Minnett, has been accused of defrauding investors through the fake winery. He was sued by the investors for millions. It's all fraud. This is on brand. Minnesota AG Keith Allison, another peach. Previously worked with Minnett, the same AG was refused to investigate widespread Somali fraud. How does a non-existent winery jump from 15,000 to 5 mil in 1 year? The company is a ghost. I like the ghost idea, but anyway, that's me. How can Omar claim this fake company provides her millions in assets? Seems like a cover. Ironically, one of the wine labels made was literally called The Devil's Lie. Can't make it up, folks. Trump administration Republicans in Congress must investigate the fraud further. And there he is with the financial disclosure. It's all there in black and white. Children, you can look it up and watch Benny for the full story on that. But yeah, I mean, this is the kind of fraud. They know it's there. I mean, if you got Elon Musk and Musk has got the presidency here and he's friends with Vance. So if Musk is aware that there's something big going on and that, through the signals operation, all the rest, they're calling people assets and ground soldiers all over the union to participate in this thing. The other thing in these signals ops is there's foreign influence from where, of all places, Canada. Can you believe that sweet little Canada would ever be involved? We're so nice and friendly up here. Oh, wait, what's this? And now Trump will sue this disgraceful and disgusting outlet into oblivion. Holy crap, a Canadian strategist has accused Trump of kidnapping and killing his own citizens.
Oh, this
holy smokes. What do we got here? Hold on. Let's get the whole clip going. I'm intrigued, Blake. What is going on here? Make them a little smaller. We got them on the screen. Here we go.
Americans are watching as President Trump chooses to kidnap and kill his own citizens as opposed to lowering prices. Canadians are watching that in horror.
Okay, let's do it again. That's too good.
Americans are watching as President Trump chooses to kidnap and kill his own citizens as opposed to lowering prices. Canadians are watching that in horror.
All right. Yeah. And of course, there's no pushback on the moron anchor. Is this person saying
in our regime media in Canada? Yeah.
Trump's kidnapping and murdering Americans.
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi loves a condescension. Trump should sue her ass. I mean, Trump, we know he has no fear of litigation, but I mean, this kind of absolute, this is gaslighting to the fullest extent, right? He's doing what? It's the same thing. He's got the babies in cages. My mom was up for a visit. She goes, Trump took a child away. My mom goes, I go, Mom, he didn't do whatever you're hearing. That's not what went down. But there's a little child that was being reported, a little child taken away from his parents. So
you mean rescued?
No.
Rescued?
Yeah, rescue. I think the child was rescued, Mom. Yeah. They misspelled rescue. Anyway, your thoughts on this CTV thing? You think Trump's going to go after him?
I hope he does. It's time to shut those heavily subsidized by the big red machine regime media in Canada. But let's call it for what it is. The Democrat Party, the Liberal Party, the NDP, the Labour Party, they're all one and the same. They work in concert with each other. We knew that during 2016 through Trump's first term. The Liberals were running an anti-Trump rhetoric the whole time under Trudeau. He was worked during Biden's administration. Trudeau was all like blasting, saying Trump, following the whole same talking points of the Democratic Party. And anytime the Conservatives brought anybody up from the U.S. from the conservative side of the bank, it was all of a sudden their foreign influence, their Trump MAGA
Tucker
people.
Carlson had huge scrutiny.
Yeah, and we had all of the same kind of stuff going on, but this is our regime media, and it is regime media in Canada, folks. It's not true when we talk about outside of the independent media, which is all of us on X, and places like Rebel News and places like that who have to build their own online presence. But our traditional old media is a regime media. They're work in concert. They never speak separately. It's like they got one editorial board from coast to coast. They say the same stuff. They're same anti-Trump, same fear campaigns against Canadians to vote. Now that they got Trump as the boogeyman, everything that they have done wrong for the last 20 years, 10 years at least, now 11 years under the Liberal Party, is all Trump's fault. So that's
you know what's interesting too, Blake, is we're seeing the same kind of juvenile knee-jerk opposition to anything from our side of the political aisle to try and make some movement. Were you aware that this went down? Rise of Alberta writes, update, they've identified and confirmed the individual who pulled the fire alarm during last night's large Alberta independence event. A photo is obtained and his identity is confirmed. And of course, Blake, you may remember or recall the Democrat, whether it was a senator or congressman, remember they were convened, they were voting, and then he pulled the alarm. Thing. I what's all this blue all over me?
That was in the House of Representatives.
That wasn't me. I didn't do nothing. Bro, I'm innocent. And so they've got another joker doing, panic. Let's pull the fire alarm. It's absolutely knee-jerk impotence on their part. Yeah. It shows how freaking desperate they are and how they cannot allow the democratic process to operate the way it should.
Well, especially where where they pulled that alarm flies in the face of the propaganda that the regime media in Canada and the Canadian government is trying to promote, that Alberta independence movement, now they're calling separatists, but they're actually independence movement, is just a fringe group. But if you look at where that alarm was pulled, it was a huge center packed with thousands of people from front to back.
Yeah.
And you see the lineups of people signing the petition. They're going to blow the lid right beyond the threshold by probably hundreds of thousands, if not 1 million people will sign that thing to get out of get Alberta out of Canada.
Yeah. Let's talk about, because we're on it a little bit.
Just so in context where that alarm was, just so people know we're listening.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's very important. You're absolutely right about that. But since we're there, we're in Canada talking about this thing in Alberta. Do you think at this point, let's take a look at where we are in that process. You and I both had predictions about this earlier in the year, at the end of the year, where we were saying, hey, what are we going to see in 2026? And we looked at this question of Alberta independence. Do you recall what your feelings were then, and where do you think we are now in the process, right? Because the vote is coming this year in the fall of 26.
That's right.
They're going to be going to the polls. It's going to happen, or I don't know exactly whether the numbers they're crunching now are going to, I don't know exactly the structure of that, how it's going to play out, but are they going to succeed is the question. Will Alberta
they'll succeed on the petition, which then triggers the referendum, and the referendum would be in the fall. I still hold true in my prediction. I think Alberta will vote for independence. However, there is a concern. I think Danielle Smith is allowing this to happen for purely political. I like it, Danielle Smith. Don't get me wrong. Albertans who are listening, I think she's
the premier. Danielle Smith is the premier, or the governor, if you will, of Alberta.
And she. I mean, they're using this as leverage to try and get the oil pipeline to the coast of British Columbia to get to the world markets there. Trump and his team saying, bring it on down south. We're going to do it. So they're going to work on that. And she wants an Energy East line as well, a pipeline that goes from Alberta across Canada. But
she's
Quebec
a Remainer.
is standing in the way. Yeah. And I think it's Irving Oil is the problem, because the entire maritime oil system is being brought in from Saudi Arabia, and it's controlled by Irving Oil, which is Irving is a family that has been a cartel control of the oil trade. Yes, they run it all and their entire political machine tied to the liberals
Yeah.
or the conservatives out there. Depends on who's being their friends at the time to maintain their monopoly out there. And they use Quebec as the buffer to stop it, right? That's kind of what they do. So there's no Alberta oil coming across Canada. So Alba's up. Good luck. There is no loyalty between provinces there, and there's trade barriers just on that alone. But my point is, this isn't just about oil. And don't let the governments anywhere, not Daniel Smith or Ottawa, come to the table and said, okay, we'll give you your oil, we'll give you the pipeline. No, it's beyond that. It's about freedom. It's about individual rights. It's about freedom. It's about rugged individualism. We don't want this collectivist crap. We don't want to be run out of Ottawa in the West any longer. Either the Canadian Constitution that's currently exists, which is an act of, needs to be torn up, and the whole thing being redrafted to what it should be. It's either that or no go. I think everybody should be in Canada say, we're done. We're done being run by the Laurentian elite out of Quebec and Ontario. And if they don't want to play ball where everybody's equal, because in the US, you folks, Rhode Island has 2 senators. So does California. Here, it's not the same. We have appointed senators. This Laurentian elite get their leaders in, and they fill. It's all patronage. They fill it up. I mean, you can have like, oh, we don't have enough senators. Well, the prime minister will just create a few more, and eventually, it's just so corrupt. The whole system is corrupt. It's more than oil. And I'm just saying, don't let Daniel Smith off the hook if she negotiates Carney at the last 11th hour before the vote. So nope. It's not good enough. It's not just about the oil. It's about liberty. It's about freedom.
Yeah.
And we are not going to be a vassal state to China, the EU, or any WF crap or middle power alliance that Carney is talking about.
Are we starting to figure Trump out a little bit, Blake? Do you think we're like the whole idea with Greenland? Like, it's pretty obvious now that they aren't going to be the 51st state or anything like that. That what's going to happen, though, is Trump's going to have full access to it forever. And so it's a de facto state. It's just American influence is going to be unimpeded in that territory, and America is going to be able to do what it wants to do. So we don't have to do any equalization payments to our poor fellow Americans in Greenland. It loses a lot of the responsibility, but it's kind of like a lot of win-win without any loss.
Well, essentially, it's an American protectorate. They've had a military base since World War II there.
So with that in mind, now we turn to Canada. We got Alberta, and there was a really great discussion saying, no, Alberta's not going to go American. Here's what's going to happen there. It's going to be the same thing. They're going to be their own independent, if they're allowed to. If it goes, America's going to act as a salesperson's foot in the door to slow down any potential hindrance from the Canadian government. Not so fast, Canada. You're not closing the door on their independence or desire to become a country. We're backing them up that way. And through economic pressure, everything's through economic pressure. Economic pressure determines what's going to happen. And the counter argument to Alberta getting there is that the Dems would never agree to it because they know it would go red. They don't want that. So they would counter with, you got to make the District of Columbia a state if you're going to do that, so we can get a blue state. And we want Puerto Rico.
It would be Puerto Rico.
And we want the tiny nation of Guam to become fully American.
DC should never be allowed to be a state ever. It is just it is the center of a capital for the country. It needs to be separate at arm's length. It should never have the power of federal control.
Yeah, like a separate branch, right?
Yeah, but they've already dominated but look what they've done to Virginia, right? Because Virginia, the population of Washington, D.C. spreads into Virginia. And of course, they have so many people who live in Washington, D.C.
Commonwealth of Virginia.
And they flip it down, and look what they did. They're trying to steal the vote there too already. Yeah. So, I mean, but yeah, no, Alberta will be a protectorate. If anything, it will be independent. It'll be on its own. It'll be able to negotiate its own deals, form its own constitution. And every U.S. state had to form its own constitution. Just remember that. They have their own state constitution. So they'll form a constitution. They'll maybe mirror it after Idaho or Montana or someone close by. And that will be the first step. Anybody who wants to join the U.S. has to petition for statehood. You have to have a certain level of population. There has to be a vote amongst the states. But what the beautiful thing is for Canada is that it's built into the U.S. Constitution that it's automatic. You only need 9 states to vote in favor of your joining. You don't need a super majority to do it.
Yeah, I heard that. You know where I heard that?
It's a constitutional provision.
You told me that like way back in 1994. I had no idea about this. This is something you talked, because we talked about it a lot back when we were in Yale. And Blake, God bless this kid. He doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk. He put an American flag above a British heritage site. He really did. He put the American flag up, and I believe it was Old Glory. You could tell me which one it was, but it was
1858 version of Old Glory.
1858 Old Glory, Stars and Stripes.
Because it was a gold rush, 1858.
So it was all about the gold rush
and the British ensign.
And because what was it with New Caledonia? They called the whole.
There was only 2 flags at the time. There was the Americans and the British flags that were.
Yeah,
there was no Canada. Canada didn't exist.
Yeah, we didn't have Canada, so everything was up up for grabs, and nothing had been established in terms of territory. Of course, you got the 49 or San Francisco Gold Rush 49, and then 1858 in Canada. Blake taught me that. And so, so there's Blake with the American flag. He got in a lot of trouble for that too, from the powers that be. What are you doing? But he was right. Blake was right. Historically, he was quite right. The American flag.
Yeah, and some people would pulled in off the road, would come in and yell at me in the museum. Why are you flying? There's no Canadian flag, and it's just a U.S. and British flag. I said, because in 1858, we're historically accurate during the Fraser River Gold Rush.
Yeah.
These were the 2 flags. And they didn't I also had a California Republic flag, because that was a big thing in 1858. The Americans had the California Republic. And of course, California was not always a democratic machine. That was relatively more modern times.
Well, I think that we're seeing this too in Minnesota. The Dems are fighting like crazy because that state is blue because they have so many illegals voting. It's horrible. And the electoral rolls, I mean, there are Judicial Watch and entities on our side of the fence that are doing their best to clean these electoral rolls, get rid of
800,000 in Oregon alone.
It's horrible. It's horrible. And, and they're overrepresented. I mean, there's more people in the electoral rolls than there are in the state.
Yeah.
And so it correlates. So by cleaning up the illegals, I mean, the argument goes from our side, if everything was done above board, first of all, and if you could control for all the fraud going on, Trump says I'd be able to balance the budget in a year if we were able to clear all that out. And the other issue is America wouldn't have a single blue state if we got rid of all the illegals and everything. The Dems know that. That's why they're fighting so hard to impede any of the efforts of ICE, because once they get rid of those people, there goes their voting base. They know it. And it's the same in Canada. We've got the latest thing I guess they're doing is we get taxed so much because we're socialist up here. I'm not, Blake's not, we fight it tooth and nail, but because we're in a socialist system, they're working on a guaranteed universal income. And so they have a thing, goods and service tax that's across the country. And then they've got a provincial tax that they throw on top of us as well. It's just a whammy. Well, now they're changing every few years. They have to change it. Now it's the child welfare health pack. I don't know. They got some fancy name for it. And, but it's designed to help the poorest of the poor in Canada. The problem is somebody just did the math on this and they went with AI and they go, hey, Grok, what does this mean? Does this mean that disproportionately a lot of our newcomers are going to be getting this money that's dealt and that the old stock Canadians are going to be footing the bill for this? And Grok essentially said, if you want a percentage, you're looking at about 95% of that money is going to go into the hands of our newcomers. Controlled demolition, right?
Demolition. And I think ultimately the great resetters, that's where that all came from. That was the WF's plan for the world. And I think that's that demolition. They want to blow it up, reform it, reset it. And let's face it, the old first world people, the people who built these countries, created the wealth,
The settlers.
built up the factories, or even beyond that, up into the boomer era, to the point where the wealth and their wage expectations are too high. Remember, these are all bean counters and globalist financiers. They look at money,
And
they
population,
they look at
depopulation.
all that data, and they look at these places where it's cheaper to produce goods and all that stuff. So this is where the guaranteed annual income comes. It's just we want to make sure that we can control you from rebelling, much like Saudi Arabia does, by giving a guaranteed annual income to all of its people so that there is no rebellion. You'll see there's no rebellion, physical wars being fought civilly within the kingdom of Saudi Arabia, is because they give everybody a huge chunk of change to stay at the trough feeding so that they don't go kill people instead.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's remarkable. Plus, but Saudis have an incredible intelligence network too. But the point is that this is happening. They're trying to blow up Canada, and they want to replace, this is a replacement theory, with cheap labor that is imported third world labor. And by doing this, they can supplant the more expensive labor. The people have been here for generations who have ideas. Hey, I want to make $100,000 a year pushing pencils for the government. It's like, no, we're going to bring in millions of people from the second and third worlds that will do it for half the price.
Well,
and
yeah,
they'll be happy
because
to
they
line
come
up.
from,
And they'll be happy to line up at the medical.
well, look at where
places
they
that-
come from. So they don't have the same rights that we have over here, the
No.
same entitlements, all the rest of it, right?
And a very corrupt system. Most of them come from systems that, for us in the Western world, find alien now, because we've built this trust-based society that there's this honorable aspect to how we treat each other. A trust. You trust your neighbor, you elect your politician, they're supposed to do the honorable things. But a lot of those countries are built on bribery and corruption.
Yeah.
They are so corrupt, it doesn't matter. Everybody's payola. You want to get something done in your front yard, you got to grease the palm of the
And we
bylaw
haven't
guy.
operated that way. In fact, it's been frowned upon, but the Democrats have certainly, and certainly the rhinos have learned how to do it illegally.
Well, and even Canada, our kleptocracy
Oh,
is
we're
right off the
horrible.
chart.
Yeah. Our government, our politicians totally bought and sold to China, as it turns out. Okay. Gold and silver. Chuck Bryan said, hey, what about gold and silver? This is something near and dear to Blake's heart, something he wanted to talk about last week's show.
Yeah.
And so if you got anything off the top of your head that you'd like to share about gold and silver, because we've hit that point in the program, let's head out talking a little bit about the gold and silver situation.
This is a critical point, because we talk about the geopolitical forces that are realignment in the world, the new world order, which is essentially a tripolar world that's really breaking up between the controlling interests of the United States, which you talked on the show earlier, the Western Hemisphere, South and North America are coming together to talk militarily how to handle things. But that, I think, is the beginnings of Fortress North America and South America. That is what's happening. And what's happening on the currency side is that the traditional fiat currencies of the West are collapsing. That's how you can tell what's happening in the metals. When metals are skyrocketing, it's not that the metals are valued high. They're only valued high because the currency is, you need more of those currencies to buy the same metal. And traditionally, gold and silver were your methods to build wealth. That's how you would use as a trade currency for thousands of years. Well, the BRICS nations, that's, Brazil, that's Russia, that's India, that's China, that's South Africa, and 10 other and multiple other countries lining up to get involved, are creating a competing currency that is asset backed to what? Gold. And why is silver skyrocketing so much? Well, China is playing the market. They're going up hard against, and so is India, part of the BRICS, to get control of silver as well. And why is silver so important? Because we have a lot of stock speculators who bought a lot of silver on paper that doesn't exist yet. And there's people trying to short it now in the Western banks. And I'm talking the Western world, because Canada, for example, we sold off all our gold. But silver is, on the other hand, is a major industrial metal that's needed for almost all electronics. It's one of the key elements used for modern warfare. all the equipment you need, your missiles, the Tomahawks, all that, silver, silver, silver. China is shutting that door down. They're no longer selling silver
Yeah,
to the
they're
world. They're
hoarding it, right?
hoarding it all back. And you look at the Hong Kong market and you look at the Mumbai market overnight, goes up. And then in the next day, the Western world's fighting to bring it down. And it's just up and down, up and down. This isn't about a bull market, folks. This is a geopolitical war. This is the currency war for power and control. Gold, the BRICS nations have already agreed 40% of the new BRICS currency is going to be based on gold. And it's going to increase over time as they diminish the reliance off of the fiat currencies of the central bank of
So what do you want to
US
tell
dollar.
our audience about how do they orientate to gold and silver?
Well, gold and silver, it's going to be interesting because I think Trump is, I think he's a constitutionalist deep down. I think his people are constitutionalists. I think the United States, this is my prediction, I don't know when, but they are going to have to reconstitute the US dollar, which was gold backed. It's going to happen. The rest of the world is saying goodbye to these fiat currency central bankers that have created fake money and print it over and over and over again. Just look at the price. There's not enough silver being produced today that's needed industrially. It's needed militarily. I think there's a play for power. The Chinese play the long game right now. People are just going to have to understand that gold and silver is where the world is headed when it comes to currency, and specifically gold, because it's going back. That's the natural place to go for protection. It's the hedge against inflation. So people are like, oh, I made a pile of money by selling all my gold and silver. Well, you just bought a bunch of fiat currency and trade it. People say, no, maybe you should hold it. And I will have to say this. I'm not providing financial advice here. I'm not a professional.
Yeah.
Seek it out yourself. So don't sue me if you're listening to what I'm talking about. But the way I've seen it and heard it and people talking about it is hold on to it, because you may need it to just go buy a loaf of bread down at the store down the road here. It doesn't matter how many dollars you can get for it now, because that means those dollars are going up, up, and up, and up in value. It's not the dollars are up in value. It's actually going down in value because it needs more of those to buy the same thing. It's like real estate. It goes up in value because there's demand and more people want it with the same dollar. So the dollar is devaluing. So look at the difference between the two. But I think China is spearheading this. They are fighting with India. They're fighting with Russia. They're all together. South Africa, one of the largest gold deposits in the world have been found there and been digging out for a long time. And essentially, we're going to see this continue on, this tug of war of who's going to be the most powerful currency in the world. And they're doing it over silver and gold. Copper is needed is more of the electrification, and again, electronics, not so much on the monetary value for currency purposes. But copper is quite available. That's the thing. I mean, we've got lots of it here. It's pretty much everywhere. But the byproducts that come out of those mines, like silver and gold, come with copper as well. But yeah, it's copper is going to be, if anything, valuable just because we need to rebuild our entire networks, electrical networks to power all of the
And it's not
greenies.
going to be sufficient anyway, the way they
can't do it. They can't do it. It's not going to happen.
It's a mess.
But I'm just saying, watch the BRICS. If you guys watch the silver market overnight, watch it in the morning. So it's fun. Watch it. It's a seesaw. Mumbai and then Hong Kong overnight, take the price of silver up. The next day, UK, London, and New York try to push it down. You can tell big, powerful interests are going toe to toe in the finance. It's the story that's amazing that should be front and center in the news, but the news isn't talking about it. That to me says I like to look where everybody else is not watching. Right.
Or don't look here. The other one is
watch Minnesota.
Look here, but don't look here.
Look at ICE agents fighting with people in the streets. Look there, but don't look at what's happening in the currency markets. Don't look what's happening there. And I think Trump will reconstitute the US dollar. I think there's speculation that that's how JFK died, that he wanted to reconstitute the US dollar.
Yeah,
but that again, that's a speculation. That was other reasons too.
But people have mentioned that.
And I think we're in for a wild ride, and that's something we should check in periodically as we watch that. People are saying, "Well, it's the market's going to go down, it'll come
Keep our
back up
finger on
again."
the pulse of it all.
But that's how gold and silver are how you watch the trust in a currency, because you have to trust it, and people are feeling not too confident.
People aren't feeling too trusting of it all.
Trusting in fiat currencies. And remember,
Yeah.
those fiat currencies are not backed by any assets other
Yeah.
than the future earnings of your country. They're borrowed debt notes based on the future valuation of what your GDP can produce as a country. If that GDP starts to collapse, guess what? The value of that fiat currency goes down. And who's going to pay back all the loans? So all these countries in Europe, Asia have bought US dollars, and not US dollars, but US Federal Reserve notes to fund the American machine, right? And I think that is a national security threat, and that Trump recognizes that. That's why he's about Fortress North America.
Yeah.
We got to get the currency under control. We can't have it controlled by China, India, Europe, because they hold those debt notes. So,
ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind the title of this one, Promethian Report. Make sure you subscribe. Anybody on our side of the aisle, and if you're not on our side of the aisle, I encourage you to watch an episode or two anyway, and think of some of their thinking about our current state and what Trump's up to makes sense. It makes a hell of a lot of sense to me. Blake, thanks as always for helping me out with all this, and I couldn't do the show without you. I think it's way better with you being here. All right, folks, we're going to be back on Friday because it's day by day. Every day something else happens, and we'll take it on as it appears. Later today, 4:00, I'm going to be back on my other channel, the music channel, so I got maybe I'll show some records today. We'll do that. Try and do that. And I'll show you I got a telescope. I'll tell the kids all about that on the show later. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for Blake and I. Give us a thumbs up, like, and share this thing around various social media. It helps us out. Bye for now. Peace.